My wife planned to steal $5 million from me. My name is David Davis and I'm 34 years old. 6 months ago, I won the lottery. $5 million. Life-changing money. Within 48 hours of telling Relle, my wife of 3 years, I discovered she'd been fucking her boss for 8 months. Greg Sanders, smug dentist with a BMW and a CrossFit obsession. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the plan. Relle and Greg were scheming to rob me blind through a fraudulent divorce, using a corrupt lawyer named Thomas Whitmore, who'd agreed to commit perjury for a favor owed. When you find out someone you trusted is planning to destroy you, something clarifies. That white-hot rage burned away every doubt, every hesitation. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth would crack. I refused to be a victim. I recorded their conspiracy, gathered evidence. Then I systematically dismantled every single one of them. Relle lost everything. Greg lost his dental license and his income. Thomas got disbarred. If you've ever been stabbed in the back by someone you loved, you know that burning need for justice. You'll see exactly how I got mine. But let me start from the beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from. And make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. I sat in my living room that Saturday morning with my phone in my hand, staring at the lottery numbers like they might change if I blinked. My coffee had gone cold on the side table. Upstairs, the shower was running, Relle getting ready for the day. I'd been buying lottery tickets every Friday for years. $2 here and there. Just a habit, really. Something to look forward to when the work week ground me down. I never expected anything to come of it. Then I won. $5 million. I checked the numbers again. Then again. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. The winning numbers on the lottery website matched every single digit on the ticket in my wallet. I pulled that ticket out, smoothed it on my knee, compared them one more time. Perfect match. My heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape. $5 million. After taxes, I'd clear about $3 million. Life-changing money. Set for life money. The kind of money that meant I'd never have to worry about mortgage payments or car repairs or whether I could afford a vacation. I must have checked those numbers 15 times, convinced I was reading them wrong. But no, every digit matched. I had the ticket. I had $5 million. The smart play would have been to stay quiet, consult a lawyer first, get everything set up properly before telling anyone. But I was 34 years old, working in sales, living paycheck to paycheck in a decent 2-bedroom house I'd bought before Relle and I got married. And I'd just won the lottery. How the hell was I supposed to keep that quiet? The shower shut off upstairs. I heard Relle moving around in the bathroom. Any second now she'd come down, probably in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel, asking what I wanted for breakfast. 3 years of marriage to Relle had been good. Solid. Not perfect. What marriage was. But we had our routines, our inside jokes, our plans. She worked as office manager at that dental practice downtown for Dr. Sanders. I did sales calls and client meetings. We lived comfortably. Middle class comfortable. But now everything was about to change. Relle came down the stairs, towel wrapped around her, hair still wet and dripping. She looked at me and smiled. "You're up early. Coffee any good?" "Rach." My voice cracked. "You're not going to believe this." Her smile faded. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" "I won the lottery." The words tumbled out. $5 million. We actually won. Her face went through 6 different expressions in about 3 seconds. Shock first, eyes wide, mouth open, then disbelief. Then this weird calculated look I'd never seen before, like she was doing math in her head. But it smoothed out fast into pure joy. "Oh my God, David, are you serious? Let me see the ticket." I showed her. She grabbed my phone, checked the numbers herself, then looked at the ticket again. Her hands were shaking now too. Holy shit. Holy shit, David, this is real. We jumped around the living room like idiots, laughing, screaming. She threw her arms around my neck and kissed me hard, and for those few minutes everything was perfect. Everything was exactly how it should be. When we finally calmed down, Relle pulled back and gripped my shoulders. Her expression turned serious. "We need to be careful. We can't tell anyone yet. Not until we figure out how to handle this properly. Lottery winners who go public, bad things happen to them. We need a plan first. I nodded. She was right. No one. Not even family. Not until we talk to a lawyer and get everything set up. Exactly. She kissed me again. God, David. Our whole lives just changed. We spent the rest of Saturday talking. Sitting at the kitchen table with notebooks and laptops dreaming out loud. Early retirement. I could quit sales. Maybe start something on my own terms. Travel. Europe. Asia. Places we'd only talked about. Financial security. Never worrying about money again. Relle kept circling back to being smart about it. Setting up trusts. Protecting the money. Making sure we handled everything legally. This is our future, she said that afternoon, squeezing my hand across the table. We're going to do this right. I believed her completely. That night, we went to bed early. I was exhausted from the adrenaline crash, from hours of planning and dreaming. I wrapped my arm around Relle and fell asleep almost immediately, content and secure in the knowledge that our future was set. I didn't see Relle's face in the darkness beside me. Didn't see her eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Didn't see the calculating expression that settled over her features as she lay there, perfectly still, already planning something I couldn't begin to suspect. Monday morning, I was halfway to my sales meeting when my phone buzzed. Text from the client. Can't make it today. Emergency. Need to reschedule. I pulled into a gas station parking lot and stared at the message. 9 a.m. meeting and he cancels at 8:30. Perfect. I turned the car around and headed home. Maybe I could use the unexpected free time to start researching financial advisors. Lottery winners who handled their money right versus the ones who went broke in 5 years. I wanted to be in the first category. I pulled into the driveway at 9:15 and stopped. Relle's car was there. She'd left for work at 7:30 like always. I'd heard her leave while I was making coffee. Why was she home? I got out and walked to the front door, keeping my footsteps quiet. Maybe she'd forgotten something. Came back to grab it. Then I heard voices from the kitchen. Relle's voice. And a man's voice. Greg Sanders. I knew Greg. Mid-40s, divorced, drove a BMW he washed every weekend like it was a show car. Dentist. Relle's boss. I'd met him at the office Christmas party last year. He'd seemed decent enough. Little too proud of his CrossFit routine, but whatever. Relle mentioned him sometimes when she talked about work. Dr. Sanders this, Dr. Sanders that. But why the hell was he in my kitchen on a Monday morning? I stood in the hallway just out of sight and listened. Absolutely sure he doesn't suspect anything? Greg's voice. He has no idea. Relle sounded confident, cold. David's completely clueless. He still thinks we're some happy little couple. The floor dropped out from under me. And the ticket's definitely in his name? Greg again. For now. But that's why we need to move fast. I've already called Thomas Whitmore, that lawyer I told you about. He specializes in divorce cases where there's sudden wealth involved. My chest tightened. Every word hit like a punch. He says if we file this week before David has a chance to claim the money or set up any kind of trust, I can argue that it's marital property, community asset. I'm entitled to half, minimum. Half isn't good enough. Greg's voice had an edge now. Greedy, sharp. We need to push for more. You said he's been distant lately, right? We can spin that. Neglect. Make him look bad. Thomas says with the right strategy I could walk away with 60, maybe 70%, especially if we can prove David was planning to hide assets. But he wasn't. Relle laughed. Actually laughed. Thomas owes me a favor. He'll say whatever I need him to say. He'll testify that David approached him about setting up secret accounts. The rage that hit me was white hot. Clarifying. Absolute. My wife, the woman I'd trusted with everything, the woman I'd celebrated with 2 days ago, was planning to rob me. Not just leave me. Rob me. With her lover. Using a corrupt lawyer who'd commit perjury. Do you know what that feels like? To hear someone you love conspiring to destroy you? I stepped into the kitchen doorway. Well, I said. This is interesting. Relle spun around so fast, she knocked her coffee mug off the counter. It shattered on the tile. brown liquid spreading across the floor. Greg's face went sheet white. They both froze, just stood there, staring at me like I was a ghost. "David," Relle started. "Don't." My voice came out cold, controlled. "Don't say a single word unless you want to make this worse." Greg looked at Relle. Relle looked at the floor. The coffee mug sat in pieces between us. And I stood there, perfectly still, watching my marriage shatter just like that ceramic on the kitchen tile. "David, I can explain," Relle started. "Explain what exactly?" I kept my voice level, cold. "Explain how you're planning to steal my lottery winnings with your boyfriend here? Explain how you're going to use a corrupt lawyer to commit perjury? Please, Rach. I'm dying to hear the explanation. You weren't supposed to be here." She actually said that like that was the problem. Clearly. I looked at Greg. "Get the fuck out of my house." Greg stood there like a statue. He was wearing jeans and a polo shirt. Casual. He'd been here a while. Probably all morning. I said, "Get out." I took a step toward him. "Listen, David, this isn't—" Greg started. Did I stutter? "Get out of my house. Now. Or I'm calling the cops and having you removed for trespassing." Greg looked at Relle, waiting for her to do something. Save him, maybe. "Go," she finally said. "I'll handle this." Handle this. Like I was some problem to be managed. Greg grabbed his keys off the counter and walked past me, careful not to make eye contact. I followed him through the living room to the front door. Watched him get in that precious BMW and drive away. Then I went back to the kitchen. Relle had her phone in her hand. "Calling Thomas already?" I asked. "Your corrupt lawyer friend?" I held out my hand. "Give me the phone." "David, if you just calm down and listen." "Give me the phone." My voice cracked through the kitchen like a gunshot. Relle actually flinched. Her hand shook as she held it out. Good. She should be scared. I took the phone and scrolled through her recent calls. Thomas Whitmore, 5 calls in the past 2 days. Greg Sanders, dozens of calls and texts going back months. 8 months. The affair had been going on for 8 months. I opened the messages between her and Greg. Every text was worse than the last, planning where they'd go with the money, how they'd split it, how stupid I was for trusting her. Then I found the one from yesterday. Can't wait to see the look on David's face when he realizes he's getting nothing. He actually thought I loved him. The laughing emoji. That's what got me. I held up the phone so she could see it. This one's my favorite. Rochelle's face flushed red. Defiant now. "You have no idea what it's been like, David. You're boring. You're predictable. Greg actually makes me feel alive." "Boring." I repeated the word like I was tasting it. "I'm boring. Well, Relle, you're about to find out just how interesting I can be when someone tries to steal $5 million from me. It's half mine anyway. We're married. Community property. We're not married for long. And you're not getting a fucking cent. Thomas says Thomas is going to lose his law license when I report him to the state bar for planning to commit perjury." I pulled my own phone from my pocket. Showed her the voice recording app that had been running since before I walked into the kitchen. Every word. Your plan to defraud me. His plan to lie under oath. All recorded. The color drained from her face. "You're bluffing. Try me." I stepped closer. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack a bag and get out of this house. Today. Right now. You're going to move in with Greg since you two are so in love. And you're going to pray that I'm feeling merciful when my lawyer serves you with divorce papers. This is my house too. Actually, it's not. Check the deed. My name only. I bought it 2 years before we got married. You have no legal claim to this property, so pack your shit and leave, or I'm calling the police and having you removed." She stood there shaking. Rage or fear, I couldn't tell. Didn't care. "I want half of that lottery money, David. I'm entitled to it. You're entitled to nothing. You committed adultery. You planned to defraud me. You're leaving this marriage with whatever clothes you can carry in the car you drove here in. That's it. I'll fight you. Please do. I would love to play this recording for a judge. Fight me, Relle. I'm begging you. Give me a reason to destroy you even more thoroughly than I'm already planning to." For the first time, Real fear showed in her eyes. "Now pack your bag," I said quietly. "You've got 30 minutes, starting now." That Monday afternoon, I stood in the doorway and watched Relle load the last suitcase into her car. She'd made 3 trips, clothes, shoes, personal items. She didn't say a word the entire time. Just shot me these hateful looks every time she passed, like somehow I was the villain here. She slammed the trunk shut, got in the driver's seat, and peeled out of the driveway without looking back. And I stood there in the doorway of my house, holding her phone with 8 months of betrayal documented in digital ink, and felt absolutely nothing but cold, perfect clarity about what came next. The second Relle's car disappeared around the corner, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. Found the name I needed, Nelson Adamson. A buddy of mine from my old sales job, guy named Rick Porter, had gone through a brutal divorce 3 years back. His ex-wife tried to take him for everything. Rick hired Nelson and walked away with his business intact, his retirement accounts untouched, and his ex paying his legal fees. Rick called Nelson a shark. Said if you ever needed someone who didn't just win cases but eviscerated the opposition, Nelson was your guy. I needed exactly that. Nelson answered on the second ring. "Adamson. Mr. Adamson, my name's David Davis. Rick Porter recommended you a few years back. I need a divorce attorney. Today, if possible." "What's the situation?" "My wife's been having an affair with her boss for 8 months. I just won $5 million in the lottery. She's planning to defraud me out of it with a corrupt lawyer who's willing to commit perjury. I have recordings of the whole conspiracy." Silence on the other end for about 3 seconds. "Can you be at my office in an hour?" "Absolutely." "See you then." Nelson's office was downtown in one of those glass and steel buildings that screamed expensive litigation. The receptionist showed me to a corner office with a view of the city. Nelson stood when I walked in. Mid-50s, silver hair, expensive suit, handshake like a vice grip. "Mr. Davis, have a seat." I sat, pulled out both phones, mine and Relle's, and my laptop where I'd already started organizing everything. "Walk me through it," Nelson said. So I did. The lottery win on Saturday. Relle's reaction. Coming home Monday morning and hearing her in the kitchen with Greg Sanders planning the whole fraud with Thomas Whitmore. The recording I'd made. The 8 months of affair evidence in her texts. Every detail. Nelson took notes. Didn't interrupt. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair with this smile that would have made a great white shark proud. "Mr. Davis, this is the most open and shut case I've seen in 5 years. That's what I was hoping you'd say. Your wife committed adultery, which in this state is grounds for an at-fault divorce. She planned to defraud you with the assistance of a corrupt attorney. You have documentary evidence of all of it. Recordings, text messages, the works. She's not getting a dime of that lottery money. In fact, I'm going to make sure she pays your legal fees." I felt some of the tension in my chest start to ease. "What about the house? You said it's in your name only, purchased before the marriage?" 2 years before. "Then it's yours. Separate property." "What about joint accounts?" "We have one joint checking account with about $8,000 in it. Everything else is separate." "Good. I want you to go to the bank today and withdraw your half of that joint account. 4,000. Leave her half. Clean separation of joint assets. We'll document it properly." "Done. I'll file for divorce tomorrow on grounds of adultery. I'm also going to report Thomas Whitmore to the state bar with a full copy of your recording and all evidence of his planned perjury. That man's career is over. How long until the divorce is final? With this much evidence? Probably 90 days. She's not going to fight us, not with this hanging over her head. And if she does try to fight," Nelson's smile got sharper, "we'll crush her." I shook his hand. "Do it." Tuesday morning, Nelson filed the divorce papers. By Tuesday afternoon, Relle had been served at Greg's condo. Yeah, she'd moved right in with him, just like I'd predicted. She called me 17 times that evening. I didn't answer. Let every call go to voicemail. Listened to her messages later. Crying, screaming, threatening, begging. The whole emotional spectrum in about 40 minutes of recordings. Deleted every one. Wednesday, Nelson filed the formal complaint with the state bar against Thomas Whitmore. The complaint included the full recording of the kitchen conversation, copies of Rochelle's text messages discussing the fraud plan, and Nelson's legal analysis of Thomas's planned perjury. By Friday morning, Thomas's law firm had received notice of the bar complaint. By Friday afternoon, Thomas Whitmore no longer worked there. I was sitting on my back deck Friday evening drinking a beer and watching the sunset when the email came through. Nelson had a contact at Thomas's firm, someone who'd been more than happy to confirm that yes, Thomas had been let go effective immediately. The firm wanted nothing to do with a lawyer facing bar complaints for conspiracy to commit perjury. I read the email twice. Then I raised my beer to the sunset. 1 down. I said to no one in particular. 2 to go. Monday morning, 1 week after I kicked Relle out, I made a phone call. The dental practice where Greg worked, where Relle had worked, had a main office line. I dialed it at 9:15, right when I knew they'd be open but before the morning rush of patients. Riverside Dental Associates, this is Carla speaking. Carla Jensen. I'd met her at a couple of office Christmas parties over the years. Nice woman, maybe late 40s, ran the office like a tight ship. She'd always been friendly to me, and I remembered her making a face once when Greg walked by, like she smelled something bad. Carla, hi, this is David Davis, Rochelle's husband. Silence for a second. Oh, David, I heard there was some trouble. That's putting it mildly. Listen, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Does Greg have any kind of employment contract that prohibits relationships with staff? Another pause. Longer this time. David, I'm not sure I should. Carla, Greg's been sleeping with my wife for 8 months. They were planning to steal my lottery winnings through a fraudulent divorce. I have proof, recordings, text messages, all of it. I just need to know if Greg violated his employment agreement by having an affair with Relle. I heard her exhale. He signed a non-fraternization clause when the practice brought him on. No romantic relationships with employees. It's standard for all the dentists here. Would you be willing to confirm that in writing? David, I don't like Greg. Never have. He's arrogant, he's sleazy, and honestly, I'm not surprised he pulled something like this, but if I go on record, the practice partners need to know. Greg broke his contract. He's a liability. She was quiet for maybe 10 seconds. Send me what you have. I'll forward it to the partners. I sent Carla everything. The text messages between Relle and Greg. The parts of the recording where they discussed their affair. Dates, times, explicit proof that their relationship had been going on for 8 months while Relle was Greg's employee. Carla forwarded it to the 3 other dentists who owned the practice. By Wednesday afternoon, Greg Sanders was unemployed. I didn't hear this directly, of course, but word travels fast in professional circles, especially when someone gets fired for ethics violations. One of my buddies knew a guy who knew someone at the practice. The story got back to me by Wednesday evening. Greg was out. Effective immediately. No severance, no references, nothing. Perfect. Thursday morning, I filed a formal complaint with the State Dental Board. The complaint was thorough. I cited Greg's affair with his employee in violation of his employment contract. I included his participation in the conspiracy to defraud me through Rochelle's planned divorce. I attached copies of the text messages, excerpts from the recording, everything. The dental board's website said they took ethics violations seriously. Dentists were expected to maintain good moral character as a condition of licensure. Having an affair with your employee, then helping her plan to steal her husband's lottery winnings through fraud and perjury? Not exactly good moral character. By Friday, I got a confirmation email. The State Dental Board had opened an investigation into Greg Sanders. The next 2 weeks were beautiful to watch. Without his job, Greg couldn't make the lease payment on his BMW. The dealership repossessed it on a Tuesday morning. I heard about it from Carla, who heard about it from one of the dental hygienists who'd seen Greg taking an Uber to pick up his things from the office. The condo payments were next. Greg had been living in a nice 2-bedroom place downtown, one of those modern buildings with a rooftop pool. Monthly rent was probably $3,000, maybe more. Without income, he couldn't cover it. Then his ex-wife got involved. Greg had been paying alimony. Not a ton, but enough that it mattered. His ex somehow caught wind of the dental board investigation. Maybe she had friends in the industry. Maybe she was just keeping tabs on him. Either way, she filed a motion to increase her alimony payments. Her argument was simple. If Greg had money to spend on affairs and fraud conspiracies, clearly his financial disclosures during their divorce had been incomplete. Greg's life was imploding in real time. And Relle? She lost her job too. The dental practice didn't want her anywhere near the office after everything came out. Can't say I blame them. So now she was unemployed, living with her unemployed lover in a condo he couldn't afford, watching their conspiracy blow up in their faces. You ever see karma work that fast? It's something to behold. Meanwhile, Nelson connected me with two people I needed to meet. Albert Robinson was a financial advisor who specialized in wealth management. Kenneth Hubert was a trust attorney, the kind of guy who lived and breathed asset protection strategies. Nelson set up a meeting for all of us 2 weeks after Greg got fired. I sat in Kenneth's conference room, another corner office, another expensive view, and listened while Albert and Kenneth explained exactly how we were going to protect my lottery winnings. An irrevocable trust, Kenneth said, sliding a folder across the table. We establish it now before the divorce is finalized. You transfer the lottery winnings into the trust. Once it's done, those assets are untouchable. Relle has no claim to them. None? I asked. None, Albert confirmed. The trust owns the money. You're the beneficiary. But because it's established before the divorce decree, and because the funds are clearly separate from marital assets, Relle can't touch a cent. I looked at the paperwork, thought about Relle and Greg sitting in that condo, broke and desperate. Let's do it, I said. 3 weeks after that conference room meeting, I sat in Kenneth's office with him and Albert, signing the final paperwork. The irrevocable trust was done. Established, funded, bulletproof. Kenneth slid the completed documents across his desk. David, as of right now, you're protected. The trust owns the lottery winnings. You're the beneficiary. Relle has no legal claim whatsoever. None, Albert echoed. Even if she tries to argue marital property, the trust was established before the divorce finalizes. The funds are separate, untouchable. I picked up the trust documents, felt the weight of them in my hands. All that protection, all that security, contained in a stack of legal paper. Thank you, I said. Both of you. Kenneth nodded. Now go claim your prize. I claimed the $5 million anonymously through the trust 2 days later. The lottery office processed everything quietly. No press conference, no giant check photo, no public announcement. Just a wire transfer into the trust account. $5 million, minus federal and state taxes. $3 million hit the account on a Thursday morning. I sat in my living room staring at the bank app on my phone, watching those numbers appear. $3 million. More money than I'd ever imagined having. More money than most people see in a lifetime. And it was mine, protected, safe. The first thing I did was pay off the house. $78,000, gone in one transaction. The mortgage I'd been carrying for 6 years vanished. The house was mine, free and clear. The second thing was setting up a college fund. I didn't have kids yet, might not for years, but I was thinking long-term now. Thinking about building something real, something lasting. The third thing was investing most of the rest. Albert helped me structure it conservatively. Bonds, index funds, dividend stocks. Nothing risky. The goal wasn't to get richer. The goal was to stay rich, to generate enough income that I'd never have to worry about money again. A week later, I walked into my sales manager's office and quit. You sure about this, David? He asked. Completely sure. I didn't need the job anymore. Didn't need to drag myself to client meetings, didn't need to hit quotas or kiss ass for commission checks. I was free. For the first time in my adult life, I was completely free. The divorce proceedings moved fast over the next 2 months. Relle tried to fight, of course. Filed a motion claiming she deserved half the lottery winnings since we'd been married when I won. Nelson crushed it in 15 minutes of oral arguments. I sat in the courtroom gallery watching him work. He was surgical, precise, devastating. He laid out the timeline, the affair, the conspiracy, the fraud attempt. He presented the text messages, played excerpts from the recording. He showed the judge exactly who Relle was and what she'd tried to do. The judge, a woman in her 50s named Margaret Yates, listened with an increasingly stern expression. When Nelson finished, she didn't even take a recess to deliberate. Motion denied, Judge Yates said. The lottery winnings were properly transferred to an irrevocable trust before these proceedings began. The evidence shows Mrs. Davis engaged in adultery and conspired to defraud Mr. Davis. She has no claim to these funds. Next motion. Relle tried claiming alimony. Nelson demonstrated that she'd been employed when the marriage ended, that she'd voluntarily left her job due to her own misconduct, and that she'd committed adultery. He argued that awarding alimony to someone who'd tried to steal millions through fraud would be unconscionable. Judge Yates agreed. Alimony denied. Relle tried claiming part of my retirement accounts. Nelson pointed out we'd had a short marriage, that she'd been unfaithful, that she'd attempted fraud. He argued every asset should remain separate. Denied again. By the final hearing, Relle's lawyer, a public defender named Marcus Webb, who'd been assigned after she ran out of money, basically threw up his hands. "Your Honor, my client has no viable claims remaining," Marcus said. He sounded tired. "We have nothing further." Judge Yates signed the divorce decree right there in open court, 73 days from the day Nelson filed. Relle got nothing except her car and whatever personal belongings she'd taken when she left. I kept the house, the lottery money, everything. The restraining order came 2 weeks after that. Relle showed up at my house late one night, drunk, screaming from the driveway about how I'd ruined her life. The neighbors called the cops. When the police arrived, Officer Brandon Mills took the report. She was still there, pounding on my front door. Nelson filed for the restraining order the next morning. Got it approved same day. Now Relle and Greg both had to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my home, my car. I stood in my living room on a Saturday afternoon, holding the final divorce decree in one hand and the restraining order in the other. It was over. Actually, completely over. Relle was gone. Greg was destroyed. Thomas had lost his license. And I was free. 6 months after the divorce finalized, my life looked nothing like it had before. I'd spent 3 weeks in Europe, Paris, Rome, Barcelona, places I'd seen in movies and magazines but never thought I'd actually visit. I'd spent 2 weeks in Japan, wandering through temples and markets, eating food I couldn't pronounce, but that tasted incredible. I'd backpacked through South America for a month, hiking Machu Picchu, learning terrible Spanish, meeting people from all over the world. Travel. I'd always wanted to travel, but there'd never been time or money. Now I had both. I'd also started seeing someone. Her name was Angela Harrison. I'd met her at a charity event Albert invited me to, some fundraiser for the Children's Hospital. Angela was a pediatric nurse. Smart, funny, honest in a way that still caught me off guard sometimes. She had this laugh that made everyone around her smile. She was kind, genuinely kind, not the performative bullshit Relle used to pull. Everything Relle wasn't. We'd been dating 2 months, taking it slow. No rushing into anything, no big declarations. Just coffee dates that turned into dinner, dinners that turned into weekend trips. It felt right in a way nothing with Relle ever had. Life was good, better than good. It was a perfect Saturday morning, mid-October, cool enough for a sweater, but the sun was warm on the deck. I was sitting out back with coffee and a book, one of those thrillers Angela had recommended. The kind of morning where you don't think about anything except how lucky you are. My phone rang. Nelson Adamson. I picked up. "Hey, Nelson, what's up?" "David, we have a problem." The temperature dropped about 40 degrees. I set my book down. "What kind of problem?" "Relle's filed an appeal. She's claiming the divorce was finalized under duress, that she didn't have proper legal representation, and that the lottery winnings should be considered marital property. She's also claiming you coerced her into leaving the house, and that the recording you made was illegal." I felt my blood pressure spike. Are you fucking kidding me? I wish I was. She's found a new lawyer, guy named Jeffrey Romero, works for a firm that takes cases on contingency. They're arguing that the recording violated wiretapping laws and should be inadmissible. Without that recording, she's claiming there's no proof of her fraud conspiracy. What about the text messages? She's saying those were taken from her phone without consent. Same argument. I was gripping my coffee mug so hard I thought it might shatter. Can she actually win this? Probably not. The law's pretty clear that in this state you only need one-party consent to record a conversation, and you were that party. The text messages were on a phone she voluntarily handed to you. But here's the thing. Appeals take time, and money. Even if we win, which we will, this could drag out another 6 months. Maybe longer. And in the meantime? In the meantime, she's going to try to make your life hell. She's already filed a motion to freeze your assets pending the appeal. I'm fighting it. But there's a hearing next week. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe. This was supposed to be over. Relle was supposed to be out of my life, broke and miserable with her equally broke boyfriend. But no, she had to come back for one more pound of flesh. Nelson, I need you to destroy her. I don't care what it costs. End this. I'm on it, but David, you need to prepare yourself for this getting uglier before it gets better. It can't get uglier than her trying to steal $5 million the first time. She's desperate now. Desperate people do stupid things. Just be careful, watch your back. Don't give her any ammunition. We talked for another 10 minutes. Strategy, timelines, what to expect at the hearing. When I finally hung up, I just sat there on the deck, staring at nothing. The coffee had gone cold in my hand. The book lay forgotten on the side table. I thought it was over. I really thought I'd won. That Relle had finally accepted she'd lost and moved on. But she wasn't done. She was coming after me again with a new lawyer, new arguments, new attacks. I gripped the mug tighter, felt the ceramic edge press into my palm. Fine. If she wanted round 2, I'd give her round 2. And this time I was going to make absolutely certain she never got back up. 1 week later, I sat in a courthouse hearing room that smelled like old wood and stale coffee. Nelson was beside me, perfectly calm in his suit and tie. Across the aisle, Relle sat with Jeffrey Romero, a guy in his mid-30s who looked like he shopped at Men's Warehouse and thought he was hot shit. Relle wouldn't look at me, just stared straight ahead, jaw tight. Good. Judge Patricia Holloway reviewed the motion from behind the bench. She was in her 50s, no nonsense, the kind of judge who didn't waste time on bullshit. I liked her immediately. Jeffrey stood up, started his arguments. Basically claimed that the assets should be frozen because there were questions about the legality of the trust, concerns about whether the divorce had been properly finalized, issues regarding my conduct. All garbage, just dressed up garbage in legal language. Nelson stood when it was his turn, demolished every argument in about 5 minutes flat. The trust was established legally, before the divorce finalized. The divorce itself was rock solid. Adultery, fraud, conspiracy, documentary evidence. The assets were mine, period. Judge Holloway didn't even take a recess. Just looked at Jeffrey like he'd wasted her time. Motion denied. There's no legal basis whatsoever to freeze assets that were properly transferred to an irrevocable trust before divorce proceedings concluded. Anything else, counselor? Jeffrey tried to recover. Your Honor, if we could just have time to... No, motion denied. We're done here. I wanted to laugh. Relle's face went pale. We walked out of that courthouse and I felt like I could breathe again. But Jeffrey wasn't done. Over the next 3 weeks, he filed motion after motion. Discovery requests for every bank statement I'd ever had. Demands for depositions from Albert, from Kenneth, from people who barely knew me. Requests for financial records going back 10 years. Each one was a nuisance. Each one cost time and money and energy. Nelson dealt with them systematically, denying the frivolous ones, complying with the bare minimum on the rest. But it was exhausting. Every week there was something new in my inbox. Some new demand, some new attack. I'd thought winning the lottery would change my life for the better. And it had. But this constant harassment, this legal warfare with my ex-wife who just refused to accept she'd lost, it was draining. 3 weeks after the courthouse hearing, Nelson called me. David, I've got news. Good news. I was at home trying to work on a consulting proposal. I could use good news right about now. Thomas Whitmore just accepted a plea deal with the state bar. I sat up straighter. What kind of plea deal? He's surrendering his law license to avoid criminal charges for conspiracy to commit perjury. And here's the best part. As part of his plea, he's providing a sworn affidavit confirming everything in your recording. Everything. That Relle approached him about helping her defraud you. That he agreed to lie under oath all the details of their conspiracy. The knot that had been sitting in my chest for 3 weeks started to loosen. That's huge. It gets better. I've submitted Thomas's affidavit to the appellate court along with a motion to dismiss Rechelle's appeal as frivolous. With sworn testimony from a licensed attorney confirming the fraud conspiracy, there's no way her appeal survives. No way. How long? 2 weeks? Maybe 3. The court's going to rule in our favor, David. And when they do, I'm filing a motion to sanction Relle and Jeffrey for filing a frivolous appeal. She's going to end up owing you money for this. Her and her lawyer both. I felt like I could finally breathe properly for the first time in weeks. What about Greg? Oh, you're going to love this. The state dental board suspended his license pending the outcome of their investigation. He's working as a dental hygienist now under someone else's license, making about a quarter of what he used to make. And his ex-wife? She got her alimony increased. He's broke, David. Completely broke. Good. Let him suffer. Nelson, I can't thank you enough. Thank me when we get the final ruling, but David, this is over. Rechelle's done. She just doesn't know it yet. I hung up and sat there in my home office, staring at the consulting proposal on my screen. The knot in my chest was gone. Finally gone. Relle had tried one last desperate play to steal what was mine, and she was about to lose. Again. Only this time she'd be paying for it. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in Nelson's office when his computer chimed with a new email notification. He glanced at the screen, and his face split into a grin that could have cut glass. We won. Complete dismissal. I leaned forward. Say that again. The appellate court just issued its ruling. Complete dismissal of Rechelle's appeal. And get this. The court's sanctioning both Relle and Jeffrey Romero for $15,000 in frivolous litigation costs. They have to pay us, David. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to stand up and shout. Mostly I just felt this incredible wave of relief wash over me, like I'd been holding my breath for months and could finally let it out. It's over. It's over. The divorce is final. The appeal is dead. And Relle now owes you money she doesn't have. She's done, David. Completely done. I stood up and shook Nelson's hand. Couldn't find the words to thank him properly, so I just gripped his hand hard and nodded. You did good, he said. You protected yourself. You fought back. Ooh, that takes guts. I walked out of his office into the bright afternoon sun, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the weight on my chest was gone. Just gone. 1 year after winning the lottery, my life looked nothing like it had before. Angela and I were living together now. She'd moved into my place 6 months ago, and it felt right in a way nothing with Relle ever had. We'd been talking about engagement lately. Not rushing it, just discussing what it might look like. And this time I was doing it right. Prenup, trust protections, all the legal safeguards Nelson could dream up. I'd learned my lesson. I'd started a small consulting business, mostly just to keep busy. Didn't need the money, but I liked having something to do, liked feeling productive. I set my own hours, worked with clients I actually liked, turned down the assholes. It was good. I'd also reconnected with some old friends I'd lost touch with during my marriage to Relle. Guys from college, buddies from my old sales job. We had poker night every month now, just a bunch of guys sitting around playing cards, talking shit, laughing. Simple stuff. Good stuff. As for Relle and Greg and Thomas, Relle was living in a studio apartment on the bad side of town, working as a cashier at a grocery store. She'd declared bankruptcy after failing to pay the court sanctions. Last I heard, she and Greg had broken up after one too many fights about money. Jeffrey Romero got reprimanded by the state bar for taking on a frivolous case. His firm wasn't happy about that. Greg lost his dental license permanently. The state board ruled that his conduct demonstrated a lack of moral character incompatible with practicing dentistry. Now he was working at a call center making $10 an hour. His ex-wife was garnishing his wages for back alimony. He'd lost the condo, lost the BMW, lost everything. Thomas Whitmore was disbarred. He was working as a paralegal at some small firm now, making a fraction of what he used to make. He'd never practice law again. All 3 of them had tried to steal from me. All 3 of them thought I was too stupid, too naive, too boring to fight back. They were wrong. I went to the grocery store where Relle worked sometimes, not often, but occasionally, just to remind her what she'd lost. I walked in on a Thursday afternoon, needed to pick up a few things. And there she was at Register 3, wearing the store uniform, scanning items for an elderly woman with a cart full of cat food. She looked up and saw me. The expression on her face was something I'll never forget. Hatred and regret mixed together, like she couldn't decide whether she wanted to scream at me or beg me to take her back. I grabbed a cart and did my shopping. Took my time. When I got to the checkout, I made sure to go through her line. "Hey, Relle." "David." Her voice was flat, dead. She scanned my items without looking at me. Milk, eggs, bread, normal stuff. "How have you been?" I asked, because I'm a bastard sometimes. "Fine." She practically spat the word. The total came to $18.47. I handed her a 20, waited for my change. "You ruined my life," she said quietly, not looking at me. "No, Relle. You tried to ruin mine. I just made sure you didn't succeed." She handed me my change, her hand shaking slightly. I took my groceries and walked out into the parking lot. You know what? I don't think about Relle much anymore. Sometimes I'll see her at that grocery store and feel a brief flash of satisfaction, but mostly she's just gone from my life. Irrelevant. I won the lottery twice. Once when I bought that ticket, and once when I discovered who Relle really was before she could destroy me. And I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. Every confrontation, every legal battle, every dollar spent on lawyers. Because at the end of the day, I protected what was mine. I stood up for myself, and I made sure that the people who tried to hurt me paid the price. That's not revenge, that's justice. And justice feels pretty damn good. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.